including the Jewish Cultural Gala, Women Entrepreneurs of Alaska, Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center, and the Food Bank of Alaska. Tracy Sobo, Director of News and Content, said, "Most anchors of Mike's experience and tenure become comfortable, resting on their laurels and a solid resume of success. But Mike continues to push both himself and our newsroom staff to reach new goals, develop new skill sets, and become better journalists. Leading by example, he continues to invest in his own growth as a field reporter and can often be found shooting stories and generating content on his so-called free time over the weekends. Mike serves as a role model at KTUU, proving a journalist's dedication to craft is not over at the end of one scheduled shift." Let's bring on Mike Ross.
It's pretty scary standing up here, I gotta tell you. And I really tried to give a lot of thought as to what I would say tonight. And to try to get some ideas, I went and looked at the videos from last year's inductees, and I watched John Sharifi's presentation from beginning to end. And two things jumped out at me. The first was, that guy can talk. Put a stopwatch on him and he turned a 3-minute speech into about 15. But he also said something too that really resonated with me. He talked about the questions we ask when we're covering news stories, the 5 whys. And he said the most important are the 5 W's, the most important being why. If you can get down to the why of the story, you have really, really gotten to the heart of the matter. And so I asked myself, why? Why do we do this job, which we all know it can be very, very difficult on your family, on yourself, and why have I done it for so long? And there were 2 things that I came up with that I thought about. And the first one you saw a little bit on the video, those times when calamity and disaster hits our community, those times you hope never happen, but sometimes they do. I was at WWL in New Orleans for 20 years when Katrina hit, and we were the only station that stayed on the air during the storm. And the day before the storm hit, my photog and I were cruising through a neighborhood in Slidell, Louisiana, right on the edge of Lake Pontchartrain. And we turned into a cul-de-sac, and there was a group of about 10 people in somebody's front yard. They all lived on that one little street. And so we pulled over and we got to talking to them, and they were all discussing what they were going to do. The hurricane was expected to hit the next morning. And all of them said, well, we're going here, we're going to this, we're going to Memphis, we're going to Houston. The last person we talked to, the last neighbor, was a man who said, well, I've sent my family north, but I'm staying in this house. I built this house. This is my dream home. And I'm going to do everything I can to save it. About an hour later, as you can tell, Hurricane Katrina was a profound moment in my life. About an hour later, we did a live shot, and we aired those interviews. And we played the clip from that man who said he was not going to leave his home no matter what. And I don't know what possessed me. I kind of went off on him on camera. And I said to the camera, to the audience, you heard what this man just said. He's going to stay in his home. But what are you going to do when the storm surge comes in and there's no escape? What are you going to do when there's no hope of rescue? What can you do to save that house, that possession, in the face of this natural onslaught? Is it worth it? The next morning, Katrina hit, and that neighborhood went under 30 feet of water. And I thought about that man. And I thought to myself, there's no way he could have survived if he stayed. 3 weeks later, people started coming back to that area to see what was left. And my photographer and I, Mike Bland, actually ran into 3 or 4 of the people we had interviewed that day in their front yard. And I asked about that man, and I said, do you know what became of him? And they told me that he had watched our report, listened to what I said, heard himself on camera talking about staying in the face of this impending disaster, and he had a change of heart and packed up and left. And it was the proudest moment of my 43-year career in broadcasting to think that something that we had done, that we had put on that screen, might have turned somebody to a different path that was good for them. So when John Sharifi asked, what is the why? The first why is serving our communities at the time that they really need it. I had a similar, and the folks at KTU in Anchorage where I work had a similar opportunity and obligation at the end of November of last year. A 7.1 earthquake hit our region, and I can tell you it was terrifying. And the earth wouldn't stop shaking. It just went on and on and on. It never seemed like it was going to stop. And as I was driving into work that day, I remembered Katrina and the heartbreak that we covered and the people I worked with experienced. And I was thinking, based on that, I hoped that we would be the voice of calm in the matter, in the midst of this calamity. And with the encouragement of my boss, Tracy Sabo, she said, keep doing that, that's what we need. So yesterday, my wife and I, she'll be here tomorrow for the banquet, went to JCPenney's to buy some new shoes for the banquet. And we're at the checkout, and there's a kind of short, kind of heavy-set older woman, and she's doing the cash register thing. She looks up and she goes, "Oh, I know you. Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Well, you're gonna have to ask my wife about that first." And she said, No. I want to give you a hug because I was watching Channel 2 all during the earthquake, and you people are the only people who kept me from losing it the whole time. And for the younger folks in the audience, keep that in mind. There will come a day when you will have to do that, when you'll have to step up, when you'll have to truly be public servants. The other why, in the why we do this, is that, especially when I came to Alaska, I learned that there are so many stories of triumph among the tragedy that we covered. We covered the plane crashes, we covered the wrecks, we covered the murders, but there's so many stories of people out there that deserve to be told. My wife and I were driving down the Seward Highway, which is just a beautiful road, goes through mountain passes, and we saw trash bag after trash bag after trash bag for miles. And I asked Pam, I said, I wonder who's picking up the trash. We haven't seen anybody. Right then, we saw a little woman on the side of the road with one of those little gripper things, okay? And she's picking up trash. So we pulled over and we got to talking to her. Her name is Jeannie Follett. She's 72 years old. She's a widow. She lives in Moose Pass, Alaska. That's an Alaska name for you, right? Moose Pass. And so we got out of the car and we asked her, why are you doing this? Her husband had passed away several years before, and she was looking for something to ease her grief. And she just started picking up trash along the Seward Highway, mile after mile after mile, all by herself. And when we added it up, it came to a 60-mile stretch of this Alaska highway out in the middle of nowhere. She does this all summer long. No public recognition ever, no seeking of publicity. And a chance encounter, we put her story on the air. She deserved to have her story told. One day I got an email from one of our viewers and said, Mike, you need to call Joe LaMonaco. He has a really compelling story. So I called him, Joe, one of our viewers said, what's your name? Joe was a millionaire real estate developer in Anchorage, Alaska, until an economic crash in the 80s, lost everything. But he turned that low point in his life into a turning point. And he started a little nonprofit organization. And every year, 2 or 3 times, he takes volunteers to Guatemala, and they have built 2 schools down there that have helped thousands of children. And for 25 years plus, had never sought any publicity. We put a story on the air. So the why, the second why of why I do this is because there are stories out there that need to be told that television tells best. Now tomorrow we've been asked to talk to some young people who are entering our business. And a big part of my job now is mentoring young people. And what I always try to tell them is do everything with compassion. My Christian faith is my guidepost for that. And I try to instill in them that the people you will encounter in the course of covering a story don't look at them as just sound bites filling the quota in your package. They are people, and there's a pretty good chance that if they're talking to you on camera, it might be because they're at the lowest point in their life. So treat them with compassion, treat them the way you would want to be treated. I was very surprised by this nomination. I've always just been kind of a guy who comes to work and tries to do a little bit better the next day. And I want to thank Tracy Sabar, news director, for nominating me, for Nancy Johnson, our general manager, for her support and letting me fill her airways for an hour and a half and sometimes holding her breath as to what I'm going to say. And to my wife, Pam, who will be here tomorrow night for her patience in being the spouse and everything that comes along with being an anchorman spouse, which is crazy hours and having no privacy when you go to Walmart. And again, thank you to everyone with the organization for this nomination. I feel truly blessed, and I thank the Lord above for all the blessings I've had in my life, including this very, very special one tonight. Thank you.